Okay, I'll call to order Bristol, Tennessee City Council meeting on September 5th, 2023. Mary Lee, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Hutton.
Here.
Powers. Here. Luttrell.
Here.
Turner.
Yes.
Firerobin. Here.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for attending. There'll be a number of opportunities to speak on matters of city business this evening. A sheet explaining those opportunities have been made available to you when entering the meeting room. As we go forward with tonight's agenda, I will note each time when public comment is welcome. In addition, a sign-up sheet has been provided as you enter council chambers and those individuals desiring to address council during the meeting. I'd like to now ask Vice Mayor Hutton to lead us in invocation, and after Councilman Luttrell for the Pledge of Allegiance.
God, we're grateful that we can gather in this building this hour to do the work of this city. We're grateful that we have the great freedoms that we have. We give thanks for all those who have made the ultimate sacrifice, but those as well who continue to stand for freedom. We're grateful for them. We're grateful for this city, and we ask, Lord, that you give us wisdom as we seek to do what is in the best interest for the people who live here. Not just now, but in the future as well. Lord, we're grateful that we can serve in this way. We pray that we do things in a way that please you and they're honoring. We ask your blessings on us, and we ask for your help. We ask all this in the powerful and awesome and marvelous name of Jesus. Amen.
Everyone face the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Mr. Bourgeois, is there any additions to tonight's meeting?
No additions.
Okay. Next, we have 4 proclamations. The first one is Celebrate Babies Week. Councilwoman Firerobin will read this, and Kathleen Arwood, the community liaison with the Association of Infant Mental Health in Tennessee, will be present to receive the proclamation.
Thank you. Whereas the Association of Infant Mental Health in Tennessee, AIM High, Tennessee, is dedicated to the improvement and celebration of optimal development of babies, sees the value of investing time, resources, and awareness into infants, toddlers, and families for the future of our wonderful state. And whereas 80,000 babies are born every year in Tennessee, and whereas to create a bright future for Tennessee and its families, we must ensure that all children are given the best start possible, and that begins with early relational health. And whereas scientific research points to the earliest years of life as the most critical for social and emotional development, forming brain connections that build the architecture for future growth. And whereas the most crucial ingredient in laying a healthy foundation is caring, nurturing relationships with parents, caregivers, teachers, professionals, and the community as a whole. Whereas there can be a celebration of all children with outcomes that are individualized to fit the unique needs of Tennessee's babies, providing a sense of belonging for future generations. And whereas through intentional community outreach, networking, education, intervention, and policy awareness, babies, their families, and those that support them throughout Tennessee are celebrated. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the mayor of the city of Bristol, Tennessee, does hereby proclaim the week of October 16 through 20 as Celebrate Babies Week in the city of Bristol, Tennessee, signed this 3rd day of October, 2023.
Hello, thank you all so much. So at the Association of Infant Mental Health in Tennessee, we are a a nonprofit that is mostly DHS funded, and our goal is to provide training and resources and advocacy to anybody who works with children ages birth to 6 years of age. But in October, we especially celebrate our youngest Tennesseans, and so I thank you all so much for allowing us to proclaim this date and this week as a special week to celebrate those. I would invite you to check out our website. We have all kinds of free trainings and resources for our, especially our child care providers. So lots of free trainings in the month of October that I would invite you to check out related specifically to our youngest Tennesseans. So thank you so much for allowing us to proclaim this such a special week. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, Councilwoman Powers, and we have Branch House Navigators India Scalf and Margaret Barr present to receive the proclamation.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas domestic violence transcends racial, ethnic, religious, and socioeconomic borders, and its perpetrators harm their victims, endanger children, traumatize families, and threaten our communities. And whereas 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men have experienced some form of physical violence by an intimate partner in the United States. And whereas 1 in 15 children are exposed to intimate partner violence each year in the U.S., and 90% of these children are eyewitness to the violence. And whereas 72% of all murder-suicides involve an intimate partner in the U.S., with 94% of the victims of these murder-suicides being female. And whereas in 2022 across the state of Tennessee, there were 61,783 reported victims of domestic violence, and 96 people were murdered in a domestic violence incident. And whereas on a typical day there are more than 20,000 phone calls placed to domestic violence hotlines nationwide, and whereas victims of violence should have access to medical and legal services, counseling, transitional housing, and other supportive services so they can escape the cycle of abuse. And whereas it is important to recognize the compassion and dedication of the individuals who provide services to the victims of domestic violence, and these individuals that work to increase public understanding of this significant problem. And whereas local programs, state coalitions, national organizations, and other agencies nationwide are committed to increasing public awareness of domestic violence and its prevalence, and to eliminating it through prevention and education. And whereas our state has a moral obligation to work to prevent domestic violence and address its brutal and destructive effects, now therefore be it resolved that the Mayor of Bristol, Tennessee does hereby proclaim the month of October 2023 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Bristol. This is the 3rd day of October 2023.
Thank you, Mayor Turner and City Council, for this important proclamation. It is an honor to be here tonight to accept it on behalf of Branch House and our partner agencies. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have experienced some form of physical violence by an intimate partner during their lifetime. When you consider that many do not report such incidents, these numbers are probably much higher. Branch House is a multi-agency, multidisciplinary facility that provides free and confidential services to victims of abuse in our region. We have only been open and operating since May of 2018, but since then, we have served over 1,500 individuals, with new clients coming in on a daily basis. It is truly the work of the community working together to combat family violence, and we are so grateful for Bristol for our continued support and shared vision that everyone deserves to be safe at home. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Fire Prevention Week. Vice Mayor Hutton will read. Assistant Chief McGlamory will be present to receive the proclamation.
Whereas the City of Bristol, Tennessee is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting our city. And whereas fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at greatest risk from fire. And whereas homes killed 2,800 people in the United States in 2021, according to the National Fire Protection Association, and fire departments in the United States responded to 338,000 home fires. And whereas cooking is the leading cause of home fires in the United States, and fire departments responded to more than 166,400 annually between 2016 and 2020. And whereas 2 every 5 home fires start in the kitchen, with 31% of these fires resulting from unattended cooking. Whereas more than half of reported non-fatal home cooking fire injuries occurred when the victims tried to fight the fire themselves. And whereas children under 5 face a higher risk of non-fire burns associated with cooking than being burned in a cooking fire. And whereas residents should turn pot handles toward the back of the stove, always keep a lid nearby when cooking, keep a 3-foot free zone around the stove, oven, and other things that could get hot, watch what they heat, and set a timer to remind them that they are cooking. And whereas residents who have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire, and working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in reported home fires almost in half. And whereas Bristol's first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education. And whereas Bristol's residents are responsive to public education measures and are able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. And whereas 2023 Fire Prevention Week theme, Cooking Safety Starts With You, pay attention to fire prevention, effectively serves to remind us to stay alert and use caution when cooking to reduce the risk of kitchen fires. Therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor of Bristol, Tennessee does hereby proclaim October 8th through 14th, 2023 as Fire Prevention Week throughout the city, and urge all the people of Bristol to check their kitchens for fire hazards and use safe cooking practices, and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of Bristol's fire and emergency services.
Worth of speech. Get started here. First, I'd like to thank Mayor and Council for allowing us to do this. Fire Prevention Week this year and the last 2 or 3 years have been with fall break. So we've kind of worked with Dr. Tudor trying to cancel fall break so we can have Fire Prevention Week. But the students, teachers, and faculty just won't go with it whatsoever. So we're moving our open house. We're bumping it a week away to October 21st. And it's going to be from 11 to 4 at Station 5, right in front of the Pinnacle. We're doing a few new things this year. We've got an obstacle course that we're going to set up for children so they can come out and be firemen, do a small little obstacle course like the Firefighter Challenge, just scaled down to them. We're going to have some cooking safety. We've got some cooking stations set up that will be able to see the safety issues that they can come across in their own homes. We're going to have a car seat check, and we're just going to have a good time. Let them play with the trucks, see what we've got. So we invite everybody to bring anybody you know out so we can have a good turnout this year. Thanks a bunch.
Okay, our next proclamation is Community Planning Month in Bristol, Tennessee, and Councilman Luttrell will read the proclamation, and Planning Director Sherith Young will receive the proclamation.
Whereas change is constant and affects all cities, towns, suburbs, counties, boroughs, townships, rural areas, and other places. And whereas community planning and planners can help manage this change in a way that provides better choices for how our people work, live, and play. And whereas community planning provides an opportunity for all residents to be equally involved in making choices that determine the future of their community. And whereas the full benefits of planning requires public officials and citizens who understand, support, and demand excellence in planning and plan implementation. And whereas the month of October is designated as National Community Planning Month throughout the United States of America and its territories. And whereas the American Planning Association endorses National Community Planning Month as an opportunity to highlight how planning is essential to recovery and how planners can lead communities to equitable, resilient, and long-lasting recovery. And whereas the celebration of National Community Planning Month gives us an opportunity to publicly recognize the participation and dedication of the members of planning commissions and other citizen planners who have contributed their time and expertise in the improvement to the city of Bristol, Tennessee. And whereas we recognize the many valuable contributions made by the Department of Development Services of Bristol, Tennessee, and extend our heartfelt thanks for the continued commitment to public service by these professionals. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the mayor of the city of Bristol, Tennessee does hereby proclaim the month of October 2023 as Community Planning Month in the city of Bristol, Tennessee, in conjunction with the celebration of National Community Planning Month, this third day of October 2023. Vince Turner, Mayor.
Good evening, Mayor Turner and City Council members. National Community Planning Month is observed every October in the United States. This month-long celebration is an initiative of the American Planning Association, and it's designed to raise awareness about the importance of community planning and the role it plays in shaping our cities, towns, and regions. This month, Bristol joins with communities across the country to acknowledge the lasting value of comprehensive planning processes to help grow and define and shape our city into a great place to live. Planning efforts in Bristol are bolstered by the commitment of dedicated volunteer citizen boards, including the 9 members of the Planning Commission, 3 in the room tonight, the Board of Zoning Appeals, and ultimately the policymakers and leadership here at the dais that sets our course. I would like to credit the hard work of the team in the Planning Division, Ross Peters, Heather Moore, Cardi Leonard, Steve Blankenship, and Bretta Mornings. We also couldn't do the work that we do without the collaboration of all the other city departments represented in the room tonight, and without the strong professional relationships that we have with our partners in the development community. Though the results of our effort can take time, and not without a little controversy at times, the comprehensive work that we do seeks to strengthen the community, expand opportunity, and promote good development. Thank you for taking the time to recognize Community Planning Month tonight.
Thank you. Okay, next we have no presentations this evening, and we'll have the Board of Education report. Dr. Tudor.
Good evening, everyone. Just a few things for you this evening. I'll try not to take too long. I wanted to remind everyone that October is National Principals Month, so I'd like to just recognize for a moment our school principals, Mr. John Sproles at Anderson Elementary, Ms. Denise McKee at Avoca, Mr. Trey Arrington at Fairmount, Ms. Tanika Harden at Haynesfield, Jane Leo at Holston View, Seymour Ray at Tennessee Middle School, Ms. Kim Kirk at Tennessee High School, and Dr. Jeremy Humphrey at Tennessee Online Public School. I'd also like to challenge council members, if you would, and community members. We're looking for 2 sets of volunteers. One would be for the Tennessee Promise Mentors. Those are for seniors who are seeking to go to college, and they really just need help navigating that process. And the second would be Reading Buddies. We always need Reading Buddies at all of our elementary schools for kindergarten and first graders. So if you all are interested in that, we would love the volunteers. We appreciate the Bristol, Tennessee Police Department who volunteer that time to be Reading Buddies with us. 71st annual Music in the Castle, if you can believe it, is happening this Saturday, and 35 bands will be represented. Some of those are competing, some of those are just exhibition, but great opportunity to hear wonderful entertainment if you want to see that in the castle. And then finally, as you all are aware, we are funded this year according to a new state funding model called TISA. And as a part of that, annually, beginning with the 23-24 school year, we have to submit a report to the state by November 1st that tells the state what our main goals are and how we're using TISA funding to accomplish those goals. And by November 1st, we have to seek public input on that. So I'm just drawing attention to that is posted on our website. Our 5 goals that we're focused on, our third grade reading proficiency, you all have heard me talk about that before, ELA and math proficiency at all grade levels, chronic absenteeism, which has increased significantly since the pandemic, college and career readiness for our high schoolers, and then recruiting and retaining the best teachers and staff. And so we have a report that's posted on our website. We have a forum where you can submit public feedback on how we're using our TISA funds to support those goals. So we would appreciate your feedback. That's all I have for you.
Thank you. Okay, we have 2 public hearings tonight. The first one is Fox Meadows 6-month annexation plan of services. The hearing is hereby open for the Fox Meadows 6-month annexation plan, and Sheriff, I guess you will present.
Sure. So the public hearing tonight is on a 6-month plan of services report for the most recent annexation, and that is the annexation of the 45-foot strip, 1.2 acres of Fox Meadows that was annexed last March. We are required to report and have this public hearing per Tennessee Code annotated. The public hearing is required for us to report on the plan of services. I do have a map, but I think everybody's pretty familiar with this one. But we're required to report on where we are with the plan of services. As you all will recall, everything was available on the date of the annexation, with the exception of the sanitary sewer service, and that was to be provided by the developer of the project. If you've been out there recently, you know that's underway right now, so I anticipate being able to report that phase is complete with the infrastructure at the 1-year mark. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this matter? If so, please come to the podium and say your name and your address. Seeing none, this public hearing is closed. Next, we have an ordinance to amend the zoning map of Bristol, Tennessee by designating the property at 1517 5th Street as R3 multifamily. Public hearing is hereby opened on ordinance 23-10. And Sheriff, you'll present again.
Yes, sir. So this staff received a rezoning request for this rezoning from the property owner, Mr. Dean Beckman. The Beckmans are here this evening with us, and the request is to rezone from R1A to R3, a multifamily zone. The parcel in question is currently vacant, and it's approximately 0.66 acres in size. So here's a map excerpt that shows the parcel subject for the rezoning request hatched in red. The surrounding property is zoned R1A. There is some M1 in the area, and then there is R3 across the street. The adjacent property owners are the Real Life Church, so they own some vacant parcels to the west, and then City of Bristol owns the vacant parcels to the east. The city garage is located on the parcel to the south. Just a quick summary, the R1A zone allows for single-family homes. The R3 allows for multifamily homes, so at 13 units an acre. The Beckmans have a plan for a quadplex, so 4 units on the site if the rezoning is approved. Just a quick excerpt from the future land use map. The property is designated with an industrial classification, and that is due to the surrounding uses. Across the street, there is medium family residential that is slated for the future land use, and so staff did feel that the future land use supported the R3 rezoning request. To date, we've only received one letter of support from Real Life Church on this rezoning request, so no objections, no public comments during the Planning Commission meeting or first reading. And the Planning Commission did vote during their August meeting to send a favorable vote to City Council on the request.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this matter? Seeing none, this hearing is now closed. Next, we have our appearance of citizens. This provides an opportunity for the public to address City Council. There was a sign-up sheet out front. I have two. First is Ron Kirk. Just step to the podium and state your name and your address. And
Good evening.
good evening.
I have been troubled and burdened by something for a long time, and I decided it was time to see if I could be a positive influence on it. I was born and raised in Bristol. I've lived other places during my career, but as I approached retirement, I came back home. The topic I want to mention to see if there's something you all could do to help with. A lot of our main streets in town, the curbs are almost level with the asphalt, even though they've chipped the asphalt. I'll give you an example. One would be Pennsylvania Avenue from the Anderson Street Bridge all the way down to where you would turn left on the Maple Street like you're going on over to Virginia Avenue. We spent a lot of work. They paved it and did a good job with that, but the curbs and the weeds and the grass that are going between the asphalt and the curbs is it's out of control, and it's not just in an isolated 2 or 3 blocks. Once I noticed that, and I tried that way all the time, I don't know why all of a sudden I've never seen it up until the last few months. I would ask that it's city property because it's growing on the side on the street side of the curb. The curbs are cracked and deteriorated terribly. I know on Virginia Avenue, of course, they're doing a lot of construction at Cedar Street, Virginia Avenue, and it's looking good. But from where Maple Street goes on down to the construction site, the curbs there are terrible. The grass, the weeds have overgrown some of them. Then I really started paying attention. The curbs on Edgemont Avenue, they're not in the grass center median part, and I'm talking about maybe where the track area is next to Viking Hall, going towards the old Bluff City Highway. When you go there, it barely curves to the right. The curb for the grass median is fine. It's perfect. It's been done and looks wonderful. The curbs on the outside of the street are embarrassing, and the grass and the weeds are going over them. And what went through my mind, we have a lot of people that have come to our town that travel Edgemont coming in. You know, Superintendent of Schools just mentioned the band festival. Well, I'm old school, excuse me, whatever they call it now. The ball games, Harvey's Classic. It's really embarrassing that we have let it get in that shape. Now, we have a lot of old parts in town, and we just can't pull money out of the sky and go out and fix every curve over the next 2 years. That would be ridiculous. But some of the main thoroughfares, the sidewalks, I go back to Virginia Avenue. They worked on some curbs there when they were working on the street. I guess that would be close to the corner of Ash Street and Virginia Avenue. But the sidewalk, at some point, I guess, ran all the way down through there. They would do maybe a third of the block, and the other 2/3 are not looking great. And then they go do one little section of the next block. I don't know if it was budget, possibly. I mean, we all have to live with budgets. But the main roads that our people travel, I mean, let's be honest, Pennsylvania Avenue, Virginia Avenue, that's Highway 421. People go to the lake, visitors do. They go to Boone and Mountain City, and it just doesn't look well on us. And again, I want to emphasize, it's all about budgets, I know that, but the secondary back streets, that's something that could be handled possibly later, but the main thoroughfares like Edgemont, Virginia Avenue, Pennsylvania Avenue, 5th Street, I almost forgot to mention it. If you're going out 5th Street and the new middle school is on your right, you're sitting at the hill looking down at the new middle school. From there all the way down to Cedar Street where they're working, it's horrible. The curbs are gone. That to me is a street that's it's going to be more heavily traveled when they get the intersection opened back up. And the last thing I'll mention to see if there's something you can do, do you all know, do we have any codes or rules on the books of what commercial buildings or homes need to look like. And I know well, I don't want to step on toes. Sometimes people do the best they can, and I understand that. But the one that, I think is it Fry and Taft that bought Mitchell Powers building? Am I thinking straight? Is that the construction company that purchased it?
I'm not sure.
It's the, you know the building I'm speaking of on the corner of Cedar
Yes.
and Fifth. It's, the weeds and the vines and stuff have grown all the way up the walls to 2 stories, all the way down through there. It's an eyesore. And some of that, I think, is probably on city property. Now, if it's attached to the building, that may be something that you all would need to decide the best angle on. But I ask that you all pay attention as best you can to some of these areas that I've mentioned to see as we move forward. And the young lady with planning, that was perfect. Maybe that's something, I don't know if that's something she would be involved in, or if that's strictly a city manager or a city council situation, but I want our town to continue to look better, and anything we can do to make that happen, I'm grateful for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have George Ling.
George Link, 307 Rutledge Street, Bristol, Tennessee, 37620. I guess you're never going to guess what I'm going to talk about. Progress on our skate park grants. We have hit a milestone with the Tony Hawk Foundation grant, but we're also hitting another stop for more work on that. They're asking us to submit a design for the grant. I've also put in an additional inquiry to the Kip Moore Skate Park Foundation grant. Apparently, country singer Kip Moore donates money to public skate parks. So we're going to basically recycle our paperwork from the Tony Hawk Foundation and inquire on that. We also got an update from the American Dermatological Foundation, or American Foundation for Dermatology, for our shade grant for the skate park. They just received letters from 2 local dermatologists approving that any proposed area that we're talking about would benefit from that shade grant. So that's an additional $8,000 to go towards that. Outside of that, we're about ready to enter the Christmas season. We are hoping to work with the skateboard company Street Plant to get some more skateboards this winter for kids from single parent and distressed households, and safety equipment to go along with that. And we're also going to be having a number of fundraisers coming up here. I'm not putting anybody on the spot until they put exact dates on it, but I know 2 are in the works now. We're trying to make this a cooperative effort on our part, and as I've talked to members of the skate community, if we could pay for this thing ourselves, I think that has a lot of social capital and goodwill involved. So, but we also appreciate your willingness to work with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, I forgot to mention, Mr. Kirk, city manager will take some notes, and and someone will, either staff or from our city manager's office, can get back to you. So. Okay, next we have 2 appointments. The first is for the Board of Zoning and Appeals. We have 2 candidates and for 2 positions. Mr. Dustin Goforth and Mr. Malin Luttrell. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of Mr. Goforth or Mr. Luttrell? I know with, I guess I could speak for both of them. Mr. Goforth I think is chairing that board right now, and has done a great job, and I think he'll continue, and happy for his willingness to do it, and same for you, Megan.
So can I just note, so these are for 2 different, one's an expiring term and one's a full term. And I would suggest, and if I need to make a motion, I could do that, that I believe that Dustin Goforth is looking at a new term, and then Malin Luttrell is looking at filling an unfilled term. So if we could assume that that's, I don't think we have to. We can elect them to whichever one, but I would propose that Mr. Goforth go for a new term to be reelected to.
Yeah, that's what he was
Yes.
applying for that position of
Yeah.
his expiring
So
term.
just to be sure we've got that clear.
Does anyone else have an issue with? Okay. Okay.
Councilman Luttrell has Dustin Goforth and Malin Luttrell. Councilwoman Powers has Dustin Goforth and Malin Luttrell. I can't read the names tonight.
It's probably mine. It's probably mine.
Well, I'll say they're all Dustin Goforth and Malin Luttrell. So
Okay.
Councilwoman Fire Robin has Malin Luttrell and Dustin Goforth. And Vice Mayor Hutton has Dustin Goforth and Malin Luttrell. And Councilman Luttrell has Dustin Goforth and Malin Luttrell.
And I had the same.
I'm sorry, yes.
One of those was mine.
One of
Shady
those-
County. Yes.
Yep.
We're all going to write clear on this go-around because it's going to be different on this one.
Okay. Next, we have one position for the Community Development Advisory Committee. We have 3 candidates, Megan Parks, Gwendolyn Pugh, and Walker Stoffel. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of the candidates? I will say, right now, I was unable to speak with any of them, so I will not be voting for any this evening since I was not able to speak to them prior to. So if there's anyone else that...
I mean, I've had a conversation with all 3, and they all bring a great sense of spirit, and I think either candidate would do a great job.
I'm glad to see, that 3 folks have applied for this. So I think that's a really good way to have people coming in. So I appreciate people being willing, and when we get 3 candidates, that's pretty cool.
Okay, so Councilwoman Fire Robin has Megan Parks. Councilman Luttrell has Megan Parks. Mayor Turner has none of them. Vice Mayor Hutton has Gwendolyn Pugh. And Councilwoman Powers has Megan Parks. So Megan Parks has 3 votes.
All right, next we have ordinances and resolutions. The first ordinance is 23-11, an ordinance to amend the Chapter 2 Administration, Article 5 Finance, Division 2 Purchasing Regulations, and the Code of Ordinances as it relates to purchasing. Ms. Smith, would you like to summarize this?
Certainly, Mayor. This is really a cleanup ordinance. Currently, our city code, I can't read the PowerPoint if I have my reading glasses on, so I apologize. Currently, our city code provides that the limit for purchases in the open market to be made without competitive bidding and public advertisement is $4,000. Consistent with the revised purchasing regulations that we'll be asking council to approve under the consent agenda, we would ask council to amend the ordinance to raise that limit to $25,000, which would be what the new regulations would say. Currently, the purchasing policy allows for competitive bidding and public advertisement for purchases over $10,000. So there's a disconnect between what the ordinance says and then the purchasing policy that council also adopted by ordinance in earlier times. And so this is really cleaning it up and making it consistent with the regulations themselves.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Smith? Do I have a motion for ordinance 23-11?
Motion to approve ordinance 23-11.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to council on this matter? Seeing none, Mary Lee, please call the roll.
Hutton,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Luttrell,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Fire Robin.
Yes.
Okay, next we have the adoption of ordinance 23-10. It's a second reading to amend the zoning map of Bristol by designating the property at 1517 5th Street as R3 multifamily residential. This item was presented by Ms. Young during the public hearing earlier. And does anyone have any questions for Ms. Young? If not, do we have a motion on ordinance 23-10?
Motion to approve 23-10.
Have a motion, a second?
Second.
We have a second. Would anyone like to discuss this? Seeing none? Mary Lee?
Hutton,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Luttrell,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Firewoman.
Yes.
Okay, next we have Resolution 23-125, a resolution committing to funding improvements to the Bristol, Tennessee Municipal Stadium, the Stone Castle. Ms. Bourgeois, would you like to?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. At your August and September work sessions, you were presented with a request by the schools for $600,000 to assist with improvements to the Stone Castle. That was presented at the August work session and had further discussion at the September work session. During the September work session, the council agreed in theory to issue installments of $200,000 per year for 3 years to cover the $600,000 total request. Those payments would be made in fiscal years 2024, 2025, and 2026. Within that discussion at the September work session meeting, there was also discussion about needing to establish a memorandum of understanding between the schools and the city with regards to use of the Stone Castle facility as well as Viking Hall. Although the $600,000 is not conditioned upon that MOU, there is a requirement within the resolution that we do enter into that MOU. So staff will be working together, both Dr. Tudor and myself, to establish the MOU language to be brought to the City Council and to the school board at upcoming meetings. And those are, again, both included in Resolution 23-125, and that resolution would authorize payments totaling $600,000 over the 3-year period with $200,000 installments each year.
Okay. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to address council on this matter? Do I have a motion to approve 23-125?
I make the motion to approve Resolution 125 as read.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mary Lee, I think we're ready for a roll.
Hutton,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Luttrell,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Firewoman.
Yes.
All right, next we have Resolution 23-126, initial resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $10 million general obligation bonds of the city of Bristol. Ms. Bourgeois, would you?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This item has been discussed by council for a number of months. It began with our budget discussions back in April and May. This would provide the second step in allowing city council to authorize up to $10 million in bonds for capital projects. Those projects, staff is still working on identifying all of those with the funding to be allocated, and that we'll talk about with the next resolution. This resolution 23-126 satisfies the 21-day public notification requirement for issuance of debt. It does not obligate the city council to issue any debt. It just keeps the process moving so that we can continue to analyze this as an option.
Okay. Is there any questions for city manager? Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak on this matter? Do I have a motion to approve 23-126?
As it doesn't obligate us to issue the bonds, it does keep the process moving, and there's great discussion that needs to come with this. I'll follow up in my comments, but I will make the motion to accept Resolution 23-126.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'd like to discuss it. I realize that it does keep things moving. I'm having a difficult time with the issue of, the number one thing is we're not clear about what projects. We've got some questions about if we're actually going to be able to do the baseball field. We've got questions about it, even if we do, how much it's going to cost. If the school system's actually going to be involved in that. My understanding when we discussed even that project, my understanding was that it was going to be a multi-use facility. The state liners, of course, the school system, would have a new baseball field, and it would be used for tournaments and whatnot. Last week, Dr. Tudor suggested that they might stay where they are. There's lots of questions about that project. Lots of questions about what other projects that we would be doing. We've been all over the board in terms of costs and where, the ifs and the maybes. It's very difficult for me to even think about continuing this process before we've had a conversation, a deliberate conversation as a city council, with some pretty clear guidelines to the city staff in regards to what we want done, when we want it done, and where it needs to be, to even continue to talk about increasing our, I mean, we're going to have to raise taxes for this. It seems like we're going to have to raise property taxes, raise our tax rate back to 216 if what Mr. Gibson pointed out last week. I mean, that's a lot to put on our people. I'd like to see us, I'd like to make an amendment to this and ask that we table this motion until we as a city council have had an opportunity to have a conversation about it, even if that means having a called work session. I understand that it delays the process, and it might even keep us from being able to do this bond this year. It may slow the process down. It may eliminate some of the projects that we said that we would do. But I'm more about being cautious about adding substantial debt to the people of Bristol on things that are really unclear. And after the articles in the paper today, I've had conversations with a couple of different people in our community, including people in my neighborhood, and they're raising their eyebrows about the potential tax increases for things like this. So I think I'm ready to push the pause button on this until we have some very clear directions. I feel like we're operating without a plan to some extent, and even maybe even the capacity to be able to pull some of these things off. At least that's how I see things. So I'd like to make an amendment to this, that we table Resolution 23-126, and I'd even go ahead and make a motion to table Resolution 23-127.
Well, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion on this?
Well, I have actually tried to make an amendment to this motion.
So you have a motion?
I'm asking for an amendment to this. I'm asking for it to be tabled.
The motion to table has to be decided before you can move on back to the main motion. And I believe it requires a second, but I can double check on that.
It does.
Okay, so there's no second on the amendment. So is there any other discussion?
I have a few thoughts. I've thought a lot about this. I share Mark's concerns, absolutely. But, I've thought a lot about this and tried to go back and reconstruct what historically we had said how we were going to approach this. When we talked about this, and I believe that it's really important that for us to go into any type of bonded indebtedness, we do have to have a clear path forward. I agree 100%. I also believe that there are things that have been put on or sought to be covered by the reserve fund that were never really intended to be covered by the reserve fund. Items such as the overage of the fire station, quite honestly, the fire station at all. The ladder truck, the 2 pump trucks, the knuckle booms. These are infrastructure items. We're considering property to construct or to relieve pressure on our current garage situation. The garage has been there since 1971. All of these are infrastructure items. And we talked about this quite a bit at length, and we had COVID to come in, and we received the American Rescue Plan money. It was $7 million, if I'm not mistaken. We as a council discussed that our community was lacking in amenities that a lot of the communities around us certainly had. And so how were we going to come up to the standards of amenities? We felt like the rescue plan money could help us to do that. And so we took a look at that. I do believe that when, in going from 216 to 198, we were cautioned that doing so would cause us to walk in place as a community and would not give us the forward momentum that we had at that point in time. I've also thought a lot about the fact of the transition of administrations. And with any transition of administration, there are challenges. And putting together this past year's budget, I would say, was one of those challenges. We got a budget put together so that we could continue to move forward, but knowing that we had loaded our reserve fund with items that should have been bonded to begin with. Why we weren't asked to bond these items in the amount that we now see them, which has absolutely has the potential to decimate our reserve fund and for us to continue walking in place even longer. So while I am not a proponent of raising taxes for no reason at all, I am a proponent of seeing to it that the city is funded, and I am in support of moving this process forward, realizing that if we have other projects that come back and they're unaffordable, then they're unaffordable, period. But the essential projects and the essential equipment of pertaining to fire and safety, public safety, pertaining to infrastructure, those are all items that are very worthy of being bonded, and for us all dropping a shoulder and lift to make those happen. So for now, I support giving ourselves the opportunity and the time to move all of this forward the best that we can. We do have numbers out, as Dr. Hutton suggested, that on other projects, but to approach this very pragmatically and to bring those items to the table to consider the bond for those specific items relieves the pressure on our reserve fund. And I believe that we need to relieve the pressure on our reserve fund. We've worked very hard over the years to build that up, and I can tell you I'm very disappointed that it was made clearer just how much pressure a lot of this had put on our reserve fund.
Anyone else?
I'll just add that I am comfortable with going ahead this evening with this resolution. It doesn't commit us, it does give us time to get some more plans in place and understanding where it's gonna, where we'll land with some of it. So I'm okay with doing it. I think we have a lot of things going on here in Bristol, and there are also a lot of changes that have come post-COVID. The labor market's changed, the supply chain has changed. And a lot of that has not gone back, and some of it's not going to go back. So I think that that's part of what we're facing that's hard. So anyway, I'm comfortable voting in favor of this resolution.
Anyone else? Mary Lee, I guess we're ready for the vote.
Hutton,
No.
Powers,
Yes.
Luttrell,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Firerobin.
Yes.
Okay. Next, we have Resolution 23-127, which I would ask that, or entertain a motion to postpone this consideration until our November 7th meeting for staff to do additional research and get us those numbers that we're asking for. This is the resolution of authorizing the issuance of the general obligation bonds and moving that to the November 7th.
Motion to
meeting.
postpone.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
That wasn't a motion to table. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, we have a
No,
motion
I'm
and a
asking-
second.
It is
asking.
debatable. This is a debatable motion, so you can ask a question at this
Great.
point if you've got.
Yeah, so if we wait till November 7th, is that still time to proceed, et cetera, it doesn't put us behind in trying to, we don't need to have a called meeting, have some work session and called meeting. November 7th works.
November 7th for the Resolution 23-227 works, yes. It does not push the bond issuance out. There may still be a need for a special called meeting to get those details and the projects and the budgets. That will address future and post, but this does not harm the timeline.
I
mean,
think,
I was
I'm
gonna
sorry.
say we could, I think of looking at that, of whatever we have for our work session at the end of this month, of whatever can be moved
Yeah.
to December or on out to have ample time and to where we can discuss this. So anyway, sorry.
I agree, and we are still in a period of transition. This has been monumental, whether anybody is aware of that in the public or not. And I think that we as a council need to be prepared that between now and November 7th, we need to be as available as we can be to work through this so that we can do whatever needs to be done. And it may be that we say we won't do anything. There's nothing definitive yet until we have these called work sessions to work through all of this.
Any other discussion?
The only thing I'll just throw in there right real quick, the 7th, I will probably be unavailable.
Okay. We can look at that.
How much notice do we need to give? Ms. Smith?
For what? For,
If we had to have a called meeting, if we had members that couldn't be here on the 7th, how much notice do we need to give that we're having a called meeting to address any of this?
the statute just says adequate public notice, which is not very clear, but I would suggest at least a week's notice if you've got that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Mary Lee?
Hutton,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Luttrell,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Fire Robin.
Yes.
Okay. Next, we have the consent agenda.
Thank you. Item A is minutes of the September 5th City Council meeting. The next is minutes of the September 26th City Council work session. The next is approval of Resolution 23-128, authorizing acceptance of a time extension supplement to the professional services agreement with Mattern and Craig for the East Cedar project. Next is approval of Resolution 23-129, authorizing payment to Troutman, Pepper, Hamilton, Sanders. Next is approval of Resolution 23-130, authorizing entry into a memorandum of understanding with, related to the Bristol Public Library. That's with the Library Board in Bristol, Virginia. Next is approval of Resolution 23-131, awarding bids to complete the closure of the Bristol, Tennessee demolition landfill area 4. Next is approval of Resolution 23-132, authorizing purchase of the sanitary sewer cleaner truck through Sourcewell. Next is approval of Resolution 23-133, approving the amended and restated purchasing regulations for the City of Bristol. Next is approval of Resolution 23-134, authorizing the purchase of a 2024 Ford Explorer under the state contract for the Fire Administration. Next is approval of Resolution 23-135, approving a grant agreement for the Federal Emergency Management Agency Hazard Mitigation Funding, and that's for the emergency generator that was discussed at the work session. And lastly is approval of Resolution 23-136, authorizing acceptance of the 2023 Bureau of Justice Assistance Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Award. Boy, that's all.
Okay. Would any member like anything removed from the consent agenda? See none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Mary Lee?
Hutton,
Yes.
Powers.
Yes.
Luttrell,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Fire Robin.
Yes.
All right, next, city manager's report.
The only thing I have is the pickleball groundbreaking is tomorrow at 11 at the Bristol Sportsplex. And just to note, we made it through September, which was extremely busy, my first one, and it was incredibly impressive what this city can pull off with the huge, huge event. So kudos to all of our staff and all of the departments for making everything run so smoothly. And I'm looking forward to many of those. That's all.
Great. City council comments? Margaret, would you like to lead us off? Really?
Wildlife
No,
Weekend.
okay, I shouldn't have said
No,
that.
give me a second. We have Wildlife Weekend coming up, and that is on the evening of Friday the 13th and all day on the 14th. And I'm sure that there's information out there on the website, on social media, et cetera. And they have guests in to have, you could give us an update too. Anyway, it's a great fun time. It's great to be outdoors. There's hikes, there's bird watching, there's bird tagging, and a lot of things going on with Wildlife Weekend. And it gives people an opportunity to come see the sloth and the park at night displays that have recently been finished. So encourage people to come and visit both those things. And another shout out for Fire Prevention Week. That'll be great. Also, car seat check that day, great. So lots of good things happening. So
I'd like to give a shout out to the Tennessee High School Mighty Vikings. I understand they've got quite a kicker this year, and he's doing a great job. They had a great win this past week, and seem to be doing well. And we have is this our last home game Friday night? You think so? It is. What time? 7 o'clock. I hope everybody will come out. We have a wonderful facility. The Stone Castle is something that we can all be proud of, and we'll be even more proud this time next year once the renovations are done. And we're a very busy city. Our staff is doing, all that they can to keep us moving in the right direction, along with my fellow council members. We spend a lot of time studying all of this and don't take any of it lightly. So I appreciate my fellow council members that work very diligently to keep us moving forward.
Well, you have anything? Ma'am?
I'll just, say that it's exciting to hear about the music in the castle coming back again this year. It sounds like it's expanded. There's only one request or one question. Is there any way we can get the band festival back? Marching through downtown, then head to the castle for the competitions. I think that's something as council we all need to be thinking about, because I think it's, in the past, I know it was a huge, huge tourism draw.
can I just add to that, something that I think would be fabulous for our community would be a community band. All the graduates who played in our band, and to put together a community band. It also, I know 4th of July parade, we always would like to have bands and music, and that's when school's out, so it's harder to get our bands. If we had a community band with enough people who are in town for that holiday, et cetera, and other opportunities. So if anybody wants to work on that, I think that there's probably some ways to do that. A couple of people have tried to do a couple of things, but it's going to take a devoted volunteer to get that going. But I think we're the community that ought to be able to do that. We should already have one with the history that we have. So I would love to see that happen. So thank you for saying that. That gave me that opportunity to advocate.
I would like to remind everybody that Believe in Bristol will be hosting our first Halloween parade, speaking of parades, and Pumpkin Palooza downtown. It'll be a great event. Everybody loves it, big turnout. So if you haven't signed up to be in the parade, you can go to believeinbristol.org or .com. Org. I had it right. And be sure and sign up. And if not, it's October
28th.
28th. Great. Okay.
Yeah, and also farmers market that's winding up this month, so, and that would be the last farmers market that day. So everybody get out and support our farmers market.
Okay.
I wasn't finished, but I'm
Go
going
ahead.
to jump back
Go
in.
ahead.
Now, the only other thing is, I'd like to echo what Ms. Powers said about, all of our staff and the hard work they do, and that it's very appreciated. And I also like to shout out to our Commissioner David Aker being in attendance tonight. It's always good to see his smiling face.
All right. I have nothing, so we're adjourned.